Please, let this be the last time we see each other. What? I just don't want to deal with family obligations. We were shocked to hear this from our eldest son's wife. Come on, it's all just too much hassle, isn't it? It's better if we just avoid it altogether. We were dumbfounded and decided to take her at her word. One day, while enjoying a holiday with our second son's wife and grandchild, the doorbell rang. "Mother-in-law, please help me." "Oh, I thought you didn't want anything to do with us anymore." "My name is Alicia, and I'm a 63-year-old housewife. I married my husband Booth, and we've been blessed with 2 children. I've lived a very happy life. Our eldest son, John, is now 32 years old, and our second son, Tony, is 28. Both of them have entered the workforce and occasionally visit us to catch up. Tony is already married, and they have a 2-year-old child. Tony's wife, Kristen, is absolutely charming and has a lovely personality. They met at work, and even their co-workers say they're a perfect match. Certainly, Kristen appears to be a good match for Tony, to the extent that it is reasonable to say so. When I see them together, their synergy is so natural that it brings a smile to my face. I am sure this is how they communicated at work as well. It's no surprise their colleagues feel the same way. When Tony and his family visit, they often bring along our adorable grandchild, Matty. Whether Matty takes after Tony or Kristen, he's turning out to be a calm and good-natured kid, just as we'd hoped. Matty is so adorable. He's a spitting image of Tony when he was a kid. Really, you think? Absolutely. Look at his eyes. Yes, and even when he smiles, he looks just like Tony. That's so heartwarming to hear. Whenever Tony and his family visit, it creates a warm and cozy atmosphere. Certainly, there's something about the vibe Tony and Kristen bring. It was probably a month later when John, our eldest, decided to visit us after a long while. "Good to see you, John." "Mom, it's been a while. Here, your favorite pound cake." "Oh, you shouldn't have." "So, what brings you back home? Something on your mind?" "Yeah, I have something important to discuss with both of you." My husband and I braced ourselves, sensing a serious conversation ahead. We served the pound cake John brought along with some coffee and sat down at the table. "So, what's on your mind?" "Actually, I've decided to get married." "What? Are you serious?" As we expressed our shock, John shyly nodded. "Congratulations, John." "So, you're finally tying the knot. We were worried you were too focused on work, but it looks like you found someone special." "Thanks, Mom and Dad." Ever since John graduated and landed a job at a major IT company, he's been swamped with work. We were glad he was doing well professionally, but he hadn't really had any relationships to speak of. So, hearing that he was getting married was the best news. "Let's celebrate with sushi tonight." My husband was thrilled, and we all celebrated John's engagement. About 2 weeks later, John brought his fiancée over to meet us. "Nice to meet you, I'm Sonia." "Very nice to meet you." Sonia was tall with a model-like figure and strikingly beautiful. Her face was petite, her eyes large and captivating. She would surely turn heads on any street. We then sat down and continued our conversation over some tea cakes. "So, how did you two meet?" "We met by chance at a party." "That's a book launch party for a CEO we both know." "Is that so?" "My husband's a public servant, and I'm a homemaker. We're not the type to attend such glamorous events." The word party coming from John surprised us a little. I guess working at a big IT company opens doors like that. Then, It was Sonia's turn to ask a question. I heard your dad's a public servant. Does he work at the city hall? No, actually I'm a teacher. I teach kids at an elementary school. Oh, a teacher, huh? I sensed Sonia's face tense up for a moment. Was something bothering her? Which university did John's mom graduate from? I graduated from XYZ University. XYZ University? Never heard of it. Oh, really? Well, it's not a prestigious university or anything. I see. The more Sonia talked with us, the more her smile seemed to fade. Wanting to lighten the mood, I brought up the topic of their wedding plans. What kind of wedding are you thinking of having? Well, we've decided on most of it. We managed to secure the venue we wanted. Now, we are brainstorming some creative touches with Sonia. Interesting. Though John was doing his best to keep the conversation going, Sonia's responses remained unenthusiastic. I was getting a little annoyed at her attitude. What on earth was bothering her? My husband also seemed uneasy. I could tell from his demeanor. John, however, appeared oblivious to Sonia's attitude toward us. Maybe this is just how Sonia usually is. Eventually, the meeting ended on an awkward note, and John and Sonia left. Did she seem a bit cold to you? My husband asked me afterward. Yeah, I felt the same way. What could have caused that? Did we say something offensive? Unable to pinpoint any reason for Sonia's cold demeanor, we started worrying if John was really going to have a happy marriage. Later, we had a family meeting attended by me, my husbands John and Tony. Sonia's family, her parents and she as the only daughter, also joined. After exchanging pleasantries, we started the family meeting. Again, Sonia was distant, even dismissive toward us. Rather, she has been acting somewhat foolishly. Being an elementary school teacher, I guess you don't frequent places like this often. What do you mean? My husband looked puzzled. Teachers are often seen as virtuous, right? Being spotted at a high-end restaurant could cause issues, couldn't it? Oh, I see what you mean. No, parents aren't that strict about such things. Is that so? Well, John mentioned he rarely visited places like this until he was an adult. Sonia chuckled as she spoke. Something about her tone felt mocking, which irked me. Her parents seemed to share her attitude. Well, let's give John credit for his hard work. He's become successful all on his own after all, said her father, Fred. The way he said it almost made it sound like we were pathetic. How rude these people are. No, I can work and contribute to society because my parents raised me well. Do you agree, Tony? Yeah, after getting married and having kids, I appreciate my parents even more. We're proud of our mom and dad. Hearing our sons say that lifted our spirits. It completely blew away the irritation we felt from being mocked by Sonia's family earlier. Our sons have grown up to be so kind. John and Tony's comments left Sonia's family looking rather bored. After that, they stopped their subtle jabs and we discussed the wedding. That's how the family meeting ended. After the family meeting, our sons said they didn't have plans, so we all gathered at our home for the first time in a while. Woo! Those kind of gatherings are always draining, Tony said as he flopped onto the sofa. Weren't you just enjoying the food, Tony? John pointed out, making us all laugh. Still, my husband and I were grateful that our sons lightened the mood. Why don't you both stay the night? How about we have some steak? It's been a while. The boys looked as gleeful as they did when they were little at my suggestion. As we all enjoyed the steak, the topic of today's family meeting came up. John, is Sonia always like that? Like what? How do I put it? Her words seemed a bit harsh. Really? You can be quite oblivious, you know. I thought her comments towards Mom and Dad were a bit sharp. Maybe it was the alcohol talking, but Tony was diving into some serious topics. My husband and I had avoided it, so we felt a bit tense as Tony went there. Do you really think so? Well, she's always been direct, maybe that's just her way, John said, unaware of Sonia's mocking tone. Did you guys feel that way? John asked us. My husband and I exchanged glances. Right, maybe she didn't mean anything bad by it, but it still wasn't the best way to say things. I see. I'll keep an eye on it. If Sonia does something like that again, let me know. John was understanding, and we felt relieved. After that, John and Sonia got married and became a couple. For some time, they didn't visit us as a married pair. John showed up during the holidays, but Sonia didn't come. When we asked where she was, John said she claimed she couldn't fit visiting my family into her schedule since she's going to hers. She hasn't even greeted my parents since we got married. I told her she should, but she won't listen. I was surprised. She never acted like this when we were dating. Apparently, Sonia had been deceitful towards John before they got married. But after marriage, she started showing her true colors, becoming cold even to John. Recently, she hasn't been cooking decent meals. I haven't been eating well. Is that so? Then we'll make you something nutritious today. You should eat up. I'll help too. Let's cook up a feast. Tony's family always visits us during the holidays, and Kristen had heard the story. Kristen and I cooked a bunch of delicious dishes together. John said, "This feels like the first time in a long while that I've eaten warm, homemade food," and ate happily. Who knew John was going through such a tough time in his marriage? Will you be okay from now on, John? If you are struggling, you can always talk to us. Thanks, but I'm an adult. I'll handle it myself. John said that and went back to the home she shares with Sonia. After that, we hardly heard from him. Sometimes I'd message him to ask if he's okay, but all I get back is "I'm fine." He's always been busy with work, but it's hard not to worry about his meals and his relationships. Half a year flew by, and Thanksgiving was approaching. Our house is filled with many relatives during Thanksgiving. So, naturally, we'd like the newlyweds, John and Sonia, to come. When I conveyed this, John assured me he'd bring his wife. Thanksgiving arrives, and relatives start to pour in. Tony's family is there as usual, and our grandchild is now 3 and quite talkative. Everyone seems to be comforted by Tony's child. In the midst of this, John arrives. Today, he's brought Sonia with him. It's been a while, Sonia. Thank you for coming. I made sure to be as humble as possible when I greeted her. I wanted to find common ground with her. But Sonia greeted us with a "Hey there!" and an incredibly displeased expression. Still as cold as ever. I couldn't fathom why she was acting like this, but with family around, I had no choice but to keep my temper in check. Then the party got underway, and just as everyone was getting into the spirits and food, Sonia walked up to us. Wondering what this was all about, she dropped a bombshell. "Let's make this our last time meeting, shall we?" What? I'd rather not do the whole family thing. We were all stunned by Sonia's words. Why would you say something like that? Isn't it all just a big hassle? Wouldn't we all be better off without it, huh? What are you talking about? Family bonds are important. You don't have to attend every gathering, but shouldn't we at least communicate to support each other when needed? Doesn't matter to me. As long as my husband brings in the dough, I can live freely. I definitely don't want to deal with you guys or Alicia. I'd rather cut ties now. We were so shocked, we decided to go along with what Sonia said. Well, all right. Do as you please. We'll steer clear of you from now on. After hearing that, Sonia smirked maliciously, picked up her bag, and left. Hey, Sonia, where are you going? John, who had been at another table, chased after her in a rush. The two left, and later John texted me on WhatsApp, saying, "Did Sonia say something terrible? I'll be back tomorrow to talk." When John showed up the next day and we filled him in, he was incredulous. She said, "What now?" According to John, Sonia had become increasingly arrogant, splurging on luxuries and bad-mouthing us, all while dragging John to her parents' home. John had been emotionally worn down by her constant attacks. Yet, he couldn't consider divorce because it would look bad and potentially impact his job. After hearing this, I was absolutely livid at Sonia and her family. They need to be taught a lesson. I decided then and there to give Sonia a taste of her own medicine. About 2 weeks went by. One day, while Kristen, my grandchild, and I were enjoying our day off, the doorbell rang. "Alicia, please help me." Standing at the entrance, her face pale as a ghost, was Sonia. It seemed my revenge had come full circle. "Oh, I thought you didn't need us anymore," I said, a bit maliciously. Please, don't say that. Please help us save my dad." Sonia was pleading with sense of desperation. Behind her stood her parents. Their faces pale, they just stood there doing nothing. Oh, why is the person in question standing still and letting his daughter do the pleading? As I said this, Fred spoke up. Could you please forgive us?" in a barely audible voice. "I can't hear you. But we don't want to bother the neighbors, so please come in." I invite them into the house, where my husband, Tony's family, and John were waiting. Sonia and her parents looked shocked to see us all gathered. "What brings you here today?" When I asked, Sonia began to speak. "We had no idea that your brother was the CEO of Dad's company. And because we've been so disrespectful, Dad's been told he'll be fired." Then her father started begging. "Please, if I lose my job now, our lives would be... We apologize for our previous rudeness. Could you please ask the CEO to reconsider firing me?" Fred was imploring us like this. "Sonia, shouldn't you apologize as well? You've mocked Booth's work and openly declared in front of our relatives that you wouldn't associate with us. You've done some terrible things." At that, Sonia looked incredibly uncomfortable. "I'm really sorry," she finally said. At least they apologized, so my husband and I felt a bit better. But we couldn't forgive them. Just as they finished apologizing, the door to the next room opened, and out came my brother, Tom. "The CEO? Why are you here? What's wrong with visiting my sister's home?" Nothing. "Looks like you've apologized properly. Have you learned your lesson?" "Yes, we will change our ways and do better." "In that case, you are officially fired." Fred freezes at my brother's words. "Why would you do this?" "The reason you're fired is power harassment and sexual harassment." "Oh." Sonia and her mother react to the mention of sexual harassment. "You've been harassing young female employees, asking them out repeatedly. When they turned you down, you started power harassing them. We've gathered ample evidence and testimonies. We don't need someone as despicable as you. For the safety of the company, you are fired." No way." Fred turns pale and slumps to the ground. Sonia and her mother look at him with cold eyes. Then, at the moment, John speaks up. Sonia, you have no right to look at Dad like that. Huh? I recently hired a private investigator. It turns out you've been having an affair with a young college student you met on a dating app. There is photographic evidence, so no excuses. Huh? Sonia turns pale, clearly not expecting to be caught. We are getting a divorce. The affair won't tarnish my career. I've done nothing wrong. No, it was just a fling. That fling is going to cost you. You'll pay the damages. Sonia slumps down when John says this. Sonia's mother collapses, unaware that her husband and daughter had been doing such things. After that, John and Sonia got divorced. Sonia's parents also got divorced. Sonia is sued for adultery damages by John. Fred loses his job and is further sued for causing emotional distress through power harassment and sexual harassment. Now, they have no one to turn to but each other. Sonia and Fred are both in debt, juggling part-time jobs to pay it back. Serves them right. On the other hand, John has temporarily moved back home and lives with us. When Tony and his family come over, John happily engages with his nephew. I hope John finds a good person someday, but for now, it's enough that he's throwing himself into his work with enthusiasm.